What I'm using is this shop grade 1/4 inch plywood, and I'm just going to tack it on with these galvanized nails. Let's see, they're 1.5 inches. Probably could use inch, but I have the 1.5 inches, so okay, so the shed is mostly done. I've got the fascia and soffit and everything on. I'm waiting for the metal trim to come in. They didn't have it in stock. And so that's going to be pretty much it, except for the doors. I need to do the doors, and I'm going to do that after I do the greenhouse. Okay, so I have started now on building the greenhouse. The shed is mostly done. I got a little bit of the metal up there to finish. Cut some of that metal off. I've got to do something about that. It's a little bit wrinkled. That metal on there, the problem was when I ordered it, they gave me the straight 90 cut, and the front of that roof is beveled, and they should have given me the bevel cut, and they didn't. So when I push the metal in to screw it down, it makes those ripples, which I'm not happy with, but I didn't want to wait another 3 weeks to get this dried in because we've got rain coming in the next couple days. So I'm not sure what I'll do there. Maybe I'll pull it out and put a piece of wood behind. I don't know. But for now, it's dried in. The only thing left to do is metal on the side here and the back, and then I have to work on the doors. But for the most part, that and a little bit of trim, it's pretty much finished. So I put down a plate here. Now, I went and took a bunch of 2x4s and started painting them white, and I didn't think, because that's a bottom plate, and that's going to get another wall on top of it. So that didn't need to be painted except for the edge, but that's all right. I just went and painted a bunch. So anyways, I'm going to start on the windows first. Now, I just made a little cut here, and it gives me the height and gives me the distance. The distance between the studs is going to be 22.25 inches, because each window is going to be 22.25 inches wide, and then they're 31.5 inches tall. So I just made that kind of as a mock-up, but that's what the bottom plate, or the bottom part of the wall, is going to look like. And so that's the bottom plate, and that's going to be a top plate across. I'm going to go the whole 12 foot. So that's going to sit right here on this corner, and pretty much that's the way it's going to look all the way around. So the first thing that I need to do is work on building the windows. So the most expensive part of this build was the glass. I did actually buy it. I kept looking on Craigslist and whatnot and trying to look around and see if I could scrounge up some old windows, but every time I'd see them, they were like, you know, half broken and they were way expensive. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go out and buy clean glass. Then I can just design the build around the specific size glass that I wanted. So I bought 23 pieces of glass. They're 1/8 inch tempered. They're 21 inches by 30 inches. Okay, so all of the windows are going to be made from 2x3s. Now, I didn't go out and buy a bunch of 2x4s and then rip them down to 2x3. I actually bought 2x3s. But if you have a bunch of 2x4s on hand, you can certainly rip them down to 2x3. Let's get started on making the windows. Okay, so I painted all of my 2x3s on 3 sides. I've left one wide side unpainted, and I'll explain why in a minute. Now, I cut 2 of these at 22.25 inches and 2 of them at 28.5 inches. So I'm going to run a channel here 3/4 of an inch over and 3/4 of an inch deep. The glass is 1/8 of an inch, and the kerf of the blade is 1/8. So the problem is that it won't fit in. I mean, it fits in, but it's really snug. You have to kind of force it in. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run my channel and then move my fence just a hair, like a 32nd of an inch, just to make this channel just a little bit wider, so that the glass will sit in there without having to force it in. Now my pieces of glass are 21 by 30 inches. So it's 21 inches wide by 30 inches tall. Now with my upright pieces, I'm going to, once I cut my channel, I'm going to take a sliver on the outside. And I'm cutting my channel on the side that I painted. And on this side, I'm going to take 1/8 of an inch off. I'm just gonna take the blade width off. So 1/8 of an inch on each side, on each one, which takes off 1/4 of an inch. And then putting my glass in, I end up with 22 1/4 inches by 31 1/2 inches tall. That's the overall size of my windows. Now you're probably wondering, why am I going to take 1/8 of an inch off? Well, here's the problem. There's a lot of rough surfaces, and sometimes the 2x3s aren't completely flat. So I'm kind of using it as a joiner or a planer to make this surface here completely flat. So it will marry right up to the studs that I have in my wall. So that's why I'm doing it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and run my channel first, and I've got my height set. I've got a little template here that should be just about right. Yeah, that's 3/4, and then 3/4 over. And that's perfect. Okay, so I'm going to run my channel down on the painted side. Okay, so I moved. Okay, so I got my fence. I got my blade up, and these are 1.5 inches wide, but I'm taking off 1/8. So it's going to be 1 3/8 is going to be the size or the width of my 2x3s when I'm done. So right about there. Okay, that looks really nice. Now it's a good thing that I did that, because I noticed that it's thin here and it's a little bit thicker down here. So it's a good thing that I did. That's actually about probably a 32nd more than, because I didn't, if I would have taken just a blade width off, I wouldn't have gotten a shaving like this, but that's okay. So what am I doing? I need my glass. So this should give me a perfect 22 1/4 inches wide by 31 1/2 inches tall. Now there might be a little play in the window, and I'm okay with that because I'm going to caulk them anyways. And that right there is perfect. There's actually, what am I doing? Okay, so that is a perfect 22 1/4 inches wide by 31 1/2 inches tall. Now to secure this, I don't have to worry about making sure that it's square because the glass itself is square. As long as this is tight, then this whole window should be square. So I'm going to pre-drill. So I'm going to pre-drill and countersink 3-inch screws right into the side piece. So I'm going to put 4 in, one here, and then one from the bottom up like this. And I'm going to do it in the beefy part here where I've got this extra, not in the front here, but toward the back. So just one screw in each corner, and that should give me a perfect window. Now I'm not using glue and I'm not using a lot of screws because I want to be able to take these out if I have to. Like that. Perfect window. Now I got a whole bunch of these to make. So now if there's any stupid bee, get out of here. Get out of here. Now, if there's any rattle, there's a little bit there. That's just because of the thickness of the groove that I made. But I'm going to put caulk around all of this, and so that's going to keep that from rattling, and it's going to seal it right nice and tight. So, okay, I got a bunch more of these to make. Okay, so this is going to kind of give you an idea of how this is going to work. Each stud is going to be 22 1/4 inches nice and tight. Okay, so each window is going to fit in between these studs. And the inside dimensions, of course, is 22 1/4 inches wide, because that's the width of my window. So I'm going to build the windows, put in my studs. Now each stud is only 31 1/2 inches tall, the same as the window. So I'm going to run all my windows, run my bottom plate, and then I'm going to put a top plate right here across. Then I'm going to put another plate on top with more windows. So basically, it's going to be a wall in itself. I'll put a top plate all the way across 12 feet, and then do the exact same thing that I've done here, up to 2 layers. Now the reason why this is only 4 feet, because I have another plate there that's 8, and this is a 12-foot wide greenhouse. So I'm going to do the same over there and then marry them together. So I'm going to keep going with my windows all the way down the 12 feet, and it should perfectly end up just like this on the other side. Now, as far as the window goes, I'm going to bring it all the way out flush onto the 2x4, because if I was to center it, it's going to give me like, I don't know, what is it, 1/4 of an inch or something like that on each side, and then water could actually sit in here, so I don't want to do that. I'm going to bring it all the way out to the front, so the window is flush right here like that, so no standing water. Okay, so there is the first row of windows. Now it's got a bottom plate, it has the 6 windows, and then it has another plate on top to tie them together. Now I did go around the east side there too, and I've got 3 windows there. And then you'll notice on the end here, there's just a little spot here that I'm going to fill in. I'll just fill that in with plywood or something. And so that gives me 9 windows on the bottom. And then I'm going to do another one, 9 windows on the top. And then for the west side here, I'm just going to leave that open because I want to be able to get in and out. And since the door is going on that side, I'm just going to have to kind of custom build the wall there anyway. So for now, I'm working on the south side and the east side with 9 more windows on top. So I'm going to put another plate down with studs, and then put the windows in, and then another plate on top. And then I'll tie them together with a plate on the very top of that. Okay, so there's the start of the top one. And I was able to measure and leave a space 22 1/4 inches between each one, and put in my studs, and then stand it up, and then screw the plate to the bottom piece. And then I'm just going to put the top plate on after all of my windows have been set in. Okay, so here it is with all 18 windows on the south and east side. And like I said, I'm going to leave the west side open temporarily because I want to be able to get in and out. And then once I get the roof done, then I'm going to start on that west wall. And then we'll put the door in also on that side. Okay, to secure these windows, I'm using 8 screws each. I'm putting 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top, and then 2 on each side. And I'm pre-drilling them. And I'm using some nice long screws. Now I'm using the T25s. You'll see there. They're a good screw. They work a lot better than the regular Phillips. And if I need to pull these out, it's simple enough just to be able to back those screws out and pull the window out if I needed to. Okay, so for the roof, I'm going to put a ledger board up here where I'm going to attach my roof rafters, and they're going to go down to that front wall. But what I'm going to do is the ledger board up here is going to go over 1 foot. So I'm going to measure the bottom plate from the outside of the shed and come over the same distance to here and then go back 1 foot exactly. So it's going to cantilever over, the roof is going to cantilever over 1 foot, and it's going to come over 1 foot from the front also. Because I want to have a little bit of distance right here for the door. And I'm going to do the same on the other side, even though I don't have to, but I want it to look the same. I want it to be, you know, I don't want it to be like, overhang here and then not over there to just kind of look off. So I'm going to do it on both sides. 1 foot over on that side and this side. And so I've got some painted 2x4s to put my ledger board up there. I'm going to go all the way up to the top, just underneath this trim. Okay, I screwed up. This board here was supposed to be 1.5 inches shorter on each end because my outside rafter is going to screw into the outside of this. And so, yeah, and even though that's end grain, I know, but I'm going to actually screw it in multiple places along the roof. So it's not just going to hold into the end grain here, but yeah, I screwed up and, but I'm making this up. But as I said, I'm making this up as I go along. Okay, so the way that I know if my wall is perfectly square, now I'm going to put my level on it also, but because everything should be square, but I measured my bottom plate to the wall, and I made another piece here which was 83 5/8 or something like that, and then I pushed the wall in so that it touches this plate, and then I set this here, make sure that's all the way in, my wall is in, and then I just make my mark right there. That way I know that the top of this wall to the shed is the same as the bottom of the wall to the shed. And then of course I put my level on it and it should be perfect. Because I've been very careful about making sure everything is perfectly square here. So right about there, push it into that mark, and that is perfect. It's perfect. So I didn't want to just trust the level. I wanted to make sure that my measurements were correct as well. Let me make my original mark. And then just go back 1.5 inches from that. And that's going to be the size of all of my rafters. Okay, so this, get out of here, bee. So this is coming right across here, sitting on this wall here, on this top plate. And then this is going to be my front piece that's going to cantilever over about 1 foot, well, exactly 1 foot actually. And it's going to get a rafter across here like this on the outside. And then this will get screwed into here all the way down. Every rafter will be like this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all of my rafters and then screw them into the ledger board, and then screw them into, except this one, screw them into each of the top plate above the studs here. Okay, so since this is 12 feet wide, and I'm going to cantilever over 1 foot on each side, that makes it 14. So I cut 2 pieces at 7 feet. And this should go just like this. So it's flush right here. And then what I will do is I will take a piece of, I have some cedar fence board That's 5.5 inches. So it will come down here, right here, it'll come 3.5, 4.5, then 5. So it'll come down a couple inches here, and it'll catch all of this. So it'll tie the roof into the wall also. So I'm tying everything together as much as possible. And also that trim, the purpose of the trim is to just get rid of all these seams and make it look nicer. Good thing I caught my mistake before I actually screwed this in. This piece should not be 7 feet. It should be just under 7 feet. I needed it to fall dead center on this stud right here because it's not going to be 7 feet. It's not going to be 14 feet all the way across on the top. It's going to be 3 inches shy because on the outside, the top truss is going to be, or not truss, but the top rafter is going to be on the outside here. It's not going to go up against it like the rest of them are. So this needs to be cut down to fall straight on this half of that stud right there. So I'm just going to cut it like this. I'm just going to eyeball it like that. So it falls half on that, and then just lop that off. I took it off the other end because the other end was a little more dinged up. So, okay, this should work out. 10.5 inches cantilever over. Okay, right there. Perfect. Now the other one is going to come up against us here, and I don't want to get this close to screw it into this this rafter. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a piece of blocking on each side to screw it to. It won't look the greatest inside, but I know that this, if I try to do that, something's going to split. Either this is going to split here or this rafter is going to split. So I don't want to try to catch half of that. So just put some blocking in there and then screw it to it and we're good to go. Okay, so you're probably wondering why I didn't take this faceplate in and give it a bevel a little bit so that it follows the same bevel as the rafter. Well, here's the deal. These closures are going to sit just like this, and once that plastic comes down, it'll come right across the closure like this, and it'll sit perfectly. I mean, it may a little bit bend, but just it's so minute that you won't even notice it, and it's going to look perfect. It's not going to be no problem. It's not going to be a problem at all. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rafters. And this faceplate, screw the rafters into place on the ledger board, screw them into the studs here and the top plate, and then move on to the end boards. So I just held up this piece, the end piece, and just I couldn't find my pencil, so I found a Sharpie laying around. So I don't know where it came from, but okay, so there is one end. I got to do it on both sides. Will it stay just for a quick second? Yeah, it'll stay. It's got a bevel on it, so dunk right on the head, right? That would be funny, wouldn't it? That's the kind of stuff I do. You guys who watch my channel a lot know how much I get hurt. I'm always like, I got cuts everywhere. I got a big gash here on my, just off my thumb, and I don't know how I got it. So that was a bad camera view. I didn't realize that this whole thing was blocking it. But I just held it up here and then just made my mark, cut it, and then just put screws in it. I'm going to put some bracing in here. I'm not just going to put blocks in across because that's not going to help at all. I'm actually going to put some bracing in. I'm going to cut away and put some 2x across to hold this in. Okay, so what I'm doing for this one here is I am going on the one inside here and I'm cutting out a shape of a 2x4 right here. I went up about 1.5 feet. Then I came down about 1.5 feet and did it here also. And then I'm going to do the same on this one once I lay my 2x4. So it's going to go from that one through this one and then through this one and then be screwed at the top. Okay, so there it is, all screwed into place. And I'm just going to do this in 3 more spots, just like this on the other side, and then down toward the front wall. Okay, so the structure of the roof is done. Now I decided to only go with one bracing on the top where I did the cutaway to hold that cantilever part, because I think it's pretty strong, even after putting my centerpieces in. So I did the same thing on the other side, just went with the one on the top. Okay, so it's all painted, and I even painted a little bit of the windows here. And I accidentally did do a few splashes on the green wall that I need to touch up with green paint. But anyways, and I actually got carried away and I painted the front here, forgetting that I was actually going to put a piece of 1x6 on the front, but that's okay, no big. So I'm going to put the poly panels on the roof now, and I've got the closures all painted. So how this is working is these are going to go up on this ledger board, just like this. Now I had footage of how I did the closures up there on the top against the shed, but for some reason it was really blurry, so I'm just going to shoot it real quick again. Now I couldn't get down in there to screw the closure down this way, so all I did was I just tacked them with my nail gun just right against that trim that I've got up there, and it worked out perfectly fine. Now the reason I didn't start out here, because if I did that, then it wouldn't have fallen, the poly panel wouldn't have fallen at the 2-foot mark on a rafter, because this was only 1 foot out, which cantilevered over. So I'm putting it here, starting it here, then going to the 2-foot mark, the next one 2-foot mark. Then when I'm done, I'll go back and do these outside pieces. I'll have to rip one of these panels this way, which is okay. So I've got my upper ones done and my middle ones, and now I'm just doing these here. Now I'm not nailing every valley, because this is where I'm going to put my screws, and I'm kind of setting the nails offset a little bit. That way I won't hit them with my screws. And the screws are going to actually hold these on also, because I have 1-inch screws, and this is only like a 1/2 inch or so. Okay, so here's what I've decided to do. Since I'm not going to fiddle around with trying to get in here and put screws in here with a ratchet or anything like that, I've decided that I'm just going to put this here across like this, push it down tight like this, and then just nail that right in there like that. And that's going to hold it perfectly fine. That'll hold it just as tight as screws will, I think. Oh yeah, look at that. Yep, that's going to work perfectly fine. All right, put the next one in, then pull it down and keep going. Okay, so this is the west wall that's going to have the door right here. And I cut this bottom plate at 50.5 inches because I'm going to have 2 stacks of windows, one here and one here. And I'm going to cut a stud. Now each of these studs are 31.5 inches, just like they are with these studs on that south wall. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to cut a stud here that's going to be one of the braces for the door. So one's going to be on top of this plate and one is going to be on the bottom plate. So the way I'm going to do this is, so I'm going to take it like this and try to get an eyeball on this. So I'm just kind of holding it here, and this is going to be a guess. Like this. So I've got an angle here that I'm going to cut, and hopefully this is going to turn out correctly. So let's take a look here. Wow, that's a pretty good fit. Let me show you. Look at that. That's a pretty good fit right there. Okay, there's the 4 windows for this side. So next I'm going to put a 2x4 in here, up about 6 foot 4 inches or so, and go across. And I'll put 2 pieces of 2x4 here, kind of make a, kind of a mini header. And then, so I'll have a double blocking here, double blocking here. I'll put another one here. This here, I'm just going to fill in with plywood. So I'm going to hold the piece of plywood up the back here and then just trace it. And then just put it inside here and put like, staple trim around it here and then just paint it and it'll look just fine. I'll do the same for the other side over there. It's coming along. Okay, so I've got the door frame done. I ran another piece, another 2x4 here and another one there. So I've got a double and a double to be able to put my hinge on. I think it's going to open, the hinge is going to be on that side. And then for the header, I just laid 2 down instead of 2 up like this. I just laid 2 flat. It's going to be fine. And then I went and finished this off. I just put the plywood up here and then from the inside traced it, cut it out, and then put just some pieces of trim on the inside to staple it to. I got some, well, they're nice big 1.5-inch brad nails. And I did the same here and then just painted it. Okay, so what I'm going to do for inside here on the wall side, you'll notice that the closures kind of lifted it up a little bit. So I'm just going to take some painted trim, put it along here and in here, each section, and then just put on top of it what's called butyl tape. It's for edging on roofs like this. And it's just a really soft material that lays along the top of it. And I'll show you that. And then on the inside here, on the east wall, I just patched in some plywood. I just have to paint that. And then at the top, I'm doing the same thing. I got some trim here and just put some, this trimming here and then just plywood. I got to finish it off there. And one thing that I did that I didn't mention is that when I put the rafters on, I actually beveled them when they went up against that ledger board. So they weren't just straight. I beveled them on both ends. This here is that butyl tape I was telling you about. See, it's a caulking is what it is. And it just sits right on top of that trim. And then when you screw your plastic down, this just kind of like squishes. So it almost acts like a side closure is what it is. But it's really good stuff. Okay, and then on the front, this is overhanging quite a bit. But I haven't put my trim on here yet. So I need to do that. And then after I get that trim on, then I'll decide how far over I want this to hang. So I finished off a little bit of the trim here on the shed. I did not show putting this on, but it's easy. It's a walk in the park. It's just 1x4. I just painted 1x4 cedar and then just tacked it up and did some bevel cuts and went around the building. What it basically does, it just ties in everything where, you've got gaps with the soffit that didn't, the T111 didn't match the soffit and stuff. So it just tightens it all up and makes it look nice. So it just buttons it up so critters don't get in. I put a fascia up there, but that's going to I need to cut that metal all the way down their edge and then put my metal on top of that, my roofing metal. And then that is going to finish off the trim and the roof. So I'm guessing probably some people are wondering why I have this overhang right here and why I'm leaving a little bit of this overhang. Well, the thing is that even though this is completely painted with outdoor paint, I want to keep as much rain off of the greenhouse as possible. So this overhang here, I can just put this flashing on it, and then this here overhang, it just keeps the water off the wood. And so even though it's outdoor paint, it still could penetrate the wood. It will eventually, and I just want to prevent that. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to do for support, I'm going to put a 2x4, a painted 2x4, from the ground, or from the 4x4 on the bottom, all the way up to just under this truss. And what that's doing is that's creating one solid piece. See, these two walls, there's one like this and there's one sitting on top of it. And it could conceivably, if something heavy was to hit this, it could conceivably kind of do this. Now when I push on this, there's no give at all. And I probably don't need the supports, but it's just, I mean, because they're screwed in, double screws in each post, so it makes a solid wall. But I'm doing it just for caution. So I'm going to put one here, and I'm going to put one, 2 posts down on that one there, and then I'm going to put one on each side here. But when I put it on this one, I'm going to use a 2x3 because I don't want it to interfere with this window, because this window is going to be an opener. And so I need to probably make it a 2x3. That way I don't want to straddle this stud. I want to run right along the edge here so that I can still open this window. And so that's the last support, 4 2x4s.
Okay, so my door opening is 28 3/4 by 75. I want my door itself to be 28 1/4 by 74 1/2. So basically that gives me 1/4 of an inch all the way around clearance. And then this OSB is 27 by 73. So I'm looking at a little over 1/2 inch that this cedar fencing is going to extend over the OSB, because when I'm all done, I'm going to put a spline all the way around. So I'm going to cut like a 1/2 inch or so spline that I'm going to insert, so that when the door is done, you look at the edge and all you'll see is the cedar and you won't see the OSB at all.
This ended up being a hefty little door. I think that's going to work pretty good.
1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, just to raise it up a little bit.
I cannot believe how hot it is in here. Wow, feels like 100. It's only 68 outside. Don't let go of it, Tom. Hope I can get out of here. Okay, take these. Oh yeah. Wow, it actually worked out. Holy Toledo. This is the gravel that I had in the old greenhouse. So I'm bringing it in and going to spread it in here because it worked perfectly. And yep, I've got 2 of the tomatoes right there already. And check this out. It's October, what? I don't know. Almost, what's it, 18th, 19th? And I've got lots of little tomatoes. These are the Noah's grape. Lots of tomatoes on there already. So, whew, I had to get out of there. It was cranking hot in there. I think the next thing after I do this molding is to do the screens for the windows so I can get those open. So it's hard to tell where level is on the back. So I'm going to put this on the inside. That will let me know where to put my molding. And I'm putting that putty, that butyl tape, since I've got, let me get my hammer. I've got the butyl tape in here and I'm just doubling it up. And so I'm using it as like a window putty. I'm gonna put it all the way around here because I have a whole roll. And then once I get this done, I'm gonna put a trim in here and button it up tight so that this window, I mean, there's no movement here. Up there still is, but here, there's no movement because of that butyl tape. And so I'm going to pack it in really good and then put my trim on all the way around and then put a small one on the other side just to kind of make it look nice.